Of Nvidia at after-hours highs on the back of a record-breaking earnings beat, a 10-for-1 stock split, and a 262% jump in sales. The stock now well over $1,000 a share, hitting $2.5 trillion in market capitalization. Let's bring in venture capitalist known for his early investments in Airbnb, Pinterest, and DraftKings. Rick Heitzmann is managing partner at FirstMark Capital. He thinks everyone needs an AI strategy. It just certainly seems so, Rick.
It seems like it, and now people are putting their money where their mouth is. So what you're seeing is the enterprise build-out of those AI strategies beginning with Nvidia.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us about sort of the concentric circles around Nvidia. If you're not going to invest in Nvidia, how are you thinking about the next places to put your money?
Yeah, so I think you're thinking about NVIDIA as the foundational layer. It's the hardware around it, and you're seeing that build out probably starting 18 months ago, will probably continue throughout the rest of the year. Then you think about what are the software players that are going to sit on top of that and benefit from it. It's going to be the operating systems. You know, you had Steve on yesterday talking about Apple and their interoperability and their operating system being able to personalize both personal and consumer and enterprise apps. Microsoft, obviously, at every level of that chain. And then there would be new consumer apps that sit on top of it. But just the next level would be both the operating systems as well as the providers of data that will inform those large language models.
Are you seeing in the early stages companies that are being built specifically around an AI business model, whether it be an app that helps you use AI or AI being, very integral in terms of the company's workings?
Yeah, I think there's two, both on the enterprise and consumer side. There's probably a half dozen companies that are just learning how to do law. So it's just large language learning models around law, replacing all those armies of legal associates who fill in the blanks of legal forms and doing that and doing a better job of that. And then subsegments of bank loans, equity financings, all those different pieces. So the whole bingo board is being filled up really quickly.
So how do you think about that environment? Are you thinking about what those people are going to do afterwards and where they're going to go? Or are you simply just thinking about there's just going to be this massive build out? Like, do I think about leisure time? What do I think about?
We're thinking about all of it, right? So my partner, Matt Turk, has the MAD landscape, which is the machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data landscape. There's 1,400 companies out there. So, we only talk about NVIDIA. There's only a couple public ways to play it. But the private markets is exploding. So we think about enterprise and consumer, and then we think about sustainability, because a lot of these companies are just getting started, zero revenue, some pre-product. And what does it mean to be able to learn a language using that? And is that value going to accrue to the Duolingos of the world? Is it going to accrue to the Apples of the world? Or is it going to accrue to a new startup starting with 3 people building a French language specific application?
Mm-hmm. Rick, so as in the context of everyone needs to have an AI strategy, and we talk all the time, we've spent months talking about how Google was lagging. Give your assessment of maybe the big 3 we're not really talking about, which would be Amazon, Meta. I mean, it's not the conversation for today, or even Google in terms of, because at some point I still think there's the same pie for all of these companies that it's almost like keeping pace. So your thoughts on that?
So I think they all have some infrastructure, right? You have AWS or GCP, so they all have their own cloud, which will benefit both directly and indirectly as these large language models take a tremendous amount of processing power and tremendous amount of infrastructure. And then who builds what on top? So Meta is open sourcing Llama and a lot of their tools because they're a laggard, right? So if you're a laggard, you open source to try and level the playing field. If you're ahead of the game, you close source to make sure you can monetize your benefits. So Meta's open sourcing, but being a little bit ahead of the game. Amazon is, at least on the application side, behind. I mean, Alexa is something I use almost every day, but it's not great, right? So how do they keep ahead of that game? And I would say Microsoft is probably doing as good of a job as any, and they're playing at every level of that ecosystem and doing a pretty good job executing, especially with the relationship with OpenAI.
Rick, you've been thoughtful about the GLP-1 impact on society and the market share shifts and the capitalization shifts that we have seen play out. And I'm wondering if, we have made the sort of comparison between the optimism around GLP-1s and the optimism around AI and the impact. So are there trades that you see? I mean, way back when, in the early days of GLP-1s, we were thinking, people will eat less, they'll eat differently, they'll buy new clothes, they'll buy workout clothes, things like that. Are there trades like that are spurred off of this AI industrial revolution that we're not thinking? I mean, when you mentioned free time,
right?
Because people will have free time because they are more productive,
That's
right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so there has been a thing. I mean, even Nestle announcing that
Right.
there has, in specific just the GLP-1 takers of new whole areas of food. I think there's going to be something in AI, and it's going to be, what does your personal assistant do if your AI could tell you what time you have to leave for your Uber to catch your airplane and where you should eat that night and what's going to happen, so and how you should schedule your meeting and what you should talk about on Fast Money. If all those things happen, that frees up a person or a half a person to do whatever. But and I think the great thing is, no matter how much we thought the internet was going to make our lives incredibly simple and so much more leisure time, it just opens it up to do so many more things. So I don't think any of us are any less busy than we were before the internet.
It's different busy.
And you're just going to be different busy, hopefully a little bit more efficient, and hopefully having a little bit more leisure time to go to even a better restaurant.
So can you just name, we were almost out of time, one company that you think will have a tremendous productivity boost as a result of AI, not that they're in the AI business?
I think you're going to see probably the sector will probably be software. I think that software will be super powered by AI, both on the productivity of programmers by using tools so they could program more. And every single software company has had a hiring deficit over the last 20 years. That gap will be filled by AI, and the software will be that much better. So your return on investment, which is how most enterprises buy software, is going to be much greater because of this superpower. So I think, and we'll see if that gets thrown up, or the existing players will be even stronger if you think about companies that are doing some automation like UiPath today.